Every soldier carries missions the public never hears about. Tonight's story comes from a retired Army officer who asked us to change only the names. This is the Debrief Files.
I want to tell you about the night I met somebody who, as far as the United States Army was concerned, didn't exist. This was the spring of 2004. I was a captain back then, 31 years old, running logistics and facility security at a forward support base outside Mosul. Most nights out there were paperwork and radio checks. I want you to hold on to that, because this wasn't most nights. We had one secure armory on that base, level 3 access, biometric lock on the outer door, camera coverage on every angle, and inside it, exactly one weapon that mattered more than the rest of the inventory combined. A modified long-range rifle system, checked out under a classified tasking that had been sitting pending for the better part of a year. Nobody touched that weapon without 3 signatures, and a reason that went all the way up the chain. At 0200, I was walking back from the command tent when I saw the armory light on. That alone was wrong. I carried the only key that wasn't logged on the duty roster that night, and I hadn't opened that door. I looked through the reinforced window and saw a woman at the bench working the rifle apart, piece by piece. Civilian clothes, no badge, no escort. Her hands moved like she'd done this 1,000 times. Understand what that meant. That armory required a retinal scan just to clear the outer door. Whoever this was hadn't walked in, she'd gotten in. I keyed the lock and stepped inside. "Ma'am, you need to step away from that weapon and identify yourself." She didn't look up. I know I need to step away. I'm not going to. 15 years in the Army by that point, and I'd never had anyone answer me like that. Calm, almost bored, like I'd asked her to move a coffee cup. I told her again, sharper this time, that she was standing in a restricted facility handling a classified weapon system, and that I needed a name and an explanation in that order. She kept cleaning the bolt carrier. "Delaney," she said. "Captain Michael Delaney, 23rd Support Battalion. You've been in country 4 months. We were in a difficult spot. And you've been trying to get someone from Division to explain why this rifle's been sitting on your books for a year without a single tasking order attached to it." That was my name. That was my exact question. One I'd only ever raised in a private conversation with my battalion XO 3 weeks earlier behind a closed tent flap. I locked the outer door myself that time, not to trap her, to make sure nobody else walked in on whatever this was. "How do you know that?" I said. It wasn't really a question anymore. It was a demand, because it's my rifle, Captain, and it hasn't been serviced properly in 11 months, which is starting to become a problem because I need it tomorrow night. I want to explain something about that era for anyone who wasn't in the service back then. We ran a tight system. Every weapon on a secure base had a file. Who drew it? When, for what tasking, signed off by whoever had the authority to release it. That rifle's file was thin, suspiciously thin. I'd noticed it because inventory discrepancies were my job, and this one had been bothering me for months. I never got an answer. I just got told to stop asking. She must have seen it in my face, because she set down the bolt carrier and looked at me directly for the first time. Dark eyes, steady in a way I'd only seen before in men who'd been shot at more times than they could count. "Pull the file," she said. "Terminal in the corner. Access code is your own service number, plus the day you commissioned. It'll work. I promise you, it'll work." I shouldn't have done it. Every regulation I'd sworn to uphold said I should have called the duty officer, sealed the room, and let this become somebody else's problem. Instead, I walked to that terminal and typed in my own credentials like she'd told me to. The file that came up didn't have a name on it. It had a designation, a string of letters and numbers I'd never seen on any weapon record before, followed by a line that read, "Operator identity restricted" above theater commander authorization. Below that, a tasking history, not one mission, 14, going back 6 years. Ranges I didn't think were survivable for the shooter, let alone repeatable. One entry, redacted everywhere except a single number, 1,100 meters, moving target, confirmed. I read it twice. I remember my hands weren't steady. "This isn't possible," I said. "It's not comfortable," she said. "That's different from not possible." She went back to the rifle, checking the scope mount now, adjusting something so small I couldn't even see what she was doing. "Elevation drifts on this rail. If it's not retorqued every few months, nobody's touched it. That's why I'm here instead of sleeping." I asked her the only thing I could think to ask. Who authorized this? Who signed off on a civilian? Because that's what she looked like, sounded like, walking onto my base and into my armory in the middle of the night. "The same people who'll deny I was ever here," she said. "Same people who've been denying it for 6 years. Now, I need you to understand, I'd handled classified material before. I'd worked adjacent to special operations things I wasn't cleared to know the details of. But I had never, not once, been standing 3 feet away from one of those ghosts. The kind of operator whose file gets a designation instead of a name because acknowledging her existence would tell an enemy or a government things nobody in Washington wanted told. "Tomorrow night," I said. "What happens tomorrow night?" She didn't answer right away. She was running a cleaning rod down the barrel, checking it against the light. "There's a compound about 60 kilometers from here. Inside, it is a man who's been coordinating attacks on convoys through this sector for the better part of a year, including one that killed 4 of your soldiers in January. He doesn't leave that compound. He doesn't get careless. And every conventional option on the table gets more Americans killed trying to reach him. So somebody decided the answer was you. Somebody decided the answer was a shot nobody thinks is possible, from a distance nobody expects, by somebody who officially isn't there to take it." She looked up again. "I need this rifle perfect by 1800 hours tomorrow." "That's not a request, Captain. That's the only thing I actually need from you tonight." I stood there a long moment, running the math on my career versus whatever this was. Calling this in meant an investigation, and an investigation meant this woman's existence. Whatever it was worth to people far above my pay grade got compromised because of me. Not calling it in meant I was trusting a stranger with a story I couldn't verify in the middle of a war, with my name already unaccounted for in any of it. I asked her something I probably shouldn't have. something that had nothing to do with the mission. Does it ever get to you? What you do? Her hand stopped on the rifle for just a second. First time all night. Every time? She said quietly, that doesn't make it wrong to do. I don't know why, but that answer settled something in me. Not because it was reassuring. It wasn't, not really, because it was honest. Every liar I'd ever met tried to make what they did sound clean. She didn't. What do you need from me? I said. Your silence. And 40 minutes alone with a torque wrench. I gave her both. I stood by the door while she finished the rebuild, watching hands that had clearly done this 1,000 times move with the kind of care most people reserve for something they love. When she was done, she cased the rifle, shook my hand, a grip that told me exactly how much weapons training lived behind it, and walked out through a side gate I didn't know existed, into the dark, toward a checkpoint that somehow didn't stop her. I erased my own terminal session before I left that room. First and only time in my career, I falsified a security log. I told myself it wasn't really falsifying anything, since officially nothing had happened. 2 days later, a wire report came through operations. A high-value insurgent commander killed in a precision strike credited to Coalition Special Operations elements. No unit named, no distance given, no explanation for how a man who never left a fortified compound ended up dead from outside the range anyone thought was survivable. I never saw her again. I don't know her real name. I'm not sure Delaney wasn't even the one she gave every soldier who caught her in a room she wasn't supposed to be in. But I think about her more than almost anyone else from that deployment. Not because of the mission, because of the way she answered that one question honestly, in a job built entirely on people who can't afford to be honest about anything. I retired a long time ago now. Different rank, different life. But I still think, every so often, about a rifle in a locked room and a woman who wasn't there, doing work that saved men I knew and never once asked for the credit. Some soldiers get medals, some get their names on a wall, and some just get erased on purpose by people who understand that the mission only works if nobody ever finds out who completed it. I've carried her file in my memory for 20 years now. It's the only place it still exists.